Welcome to the Healthy Skin Show with Jennifer Fugo, where we're flipping everything you've been told about your chronic skin issues upside down and connecting you with alternative solutions your dermatologist never told you about.
Welcome back to episode number 95 of the Healthy Skin Show. In today's episode, I want to talk about whether supplementing with a very specific amino acid called histidine can help improve skin barrier function and ultimately help you rebuild healthier skin when you're dealing with something like eczema. This episode was actually inspired by a study that I came across a while ago. And a number of clients have also asked about it. So I figured I would look deeper into this and give you a more complete impression of this particular study, which you will find listed in the show notes for this episode. Here's the thing. We need to start with a little bit of an understanding of how histidine is even connected to skin barrier function. The way that happens is through the gene filaggrin. We've talked about this before. You've heard Dr. Leo talk about it as well. The gene is actually called profilaggrin, and it codes for a protein called filaggrin. Filaggrin is almost like mortar mix in between the cells. It helps create this really nice, tight barrier that continues to seal in moisture. It turns out that the protein filaggrin is actually very histidine rich. So about 10% of that entire protein is made up of histidine. And that's a good thing because histidine in and of itself is considered to be hygroscopic. That means that it readily absorbs moisture from its environment, which is a good thing when we want our skin to be nice and moisturized, right? Now, this is a thing. Filaggrin ultimately plays a role in creating what's called the natural moisturizing factor, and it supports hydration and appropriate acidification of the skin. With that said, let's talk about this research. So the study was a very small study of only 24 people, and all whom had atopic dermatitis. Everyone was over the age of 18. No one was taking corticosteroids or immunosuppressant drugs, nor pregnant. So they did a pretty good job of finding good candidates for this study. But again, remember, it is small, so that doesn't necessarily mean that these results will work for everyone. In this study, they gave study participants 4 grams of histidine, which was dissolved in a morning drink. And they likely did this because ideally when you want to maximize amino acid absorption, you should take them without other food around. And this supplementation was taken for a course of 4 weeks. What the researchers found was a dramatic improvement in eczema similar to that of using a mild potency topical steroid. And they calculated that they were able to elicit about a 40% drop in eczema. Now, here's the thing. For those of you wondering whether you have a SNP in your profilaggrin gene, and many of you have written me to ask about this, while Dr. Leo has commented on the show that it doesn't really matter whether you have a SNP or not, the authors for this particular study guess that adding the additional histidine supplementation would help people who are heterozygous or homozygous with those SNPs in profilaggrin. All in all, I'd say that it's a pretty neat piece of research right there. We certainly need to do more, but it's a great start. Now, here's the thing about histidine. Histidine is an amino acid that is not synthesized or made in human beings. So that means you have to actually consume it in order to have access to it. In infants, it's considered an essential amino acid because they just don't have enough of a supply within the body to even have access to it. So it's even more critical. But that said, before you go about doing any supplementation in babies and children, please talk to your pediatrician first to make sure it's the right fit for your child. Sources of histidine include dairy, meat products like beef, lamb, poultry, fish, even gelatin, tofu, beans like navy beans and peanuts, seeds like squash and pumpkin. We do have a reservoir of histidine in the human body that's used for hemoglobin, So the thing inside of your red blood cells that helps latch on to oxygen and carry it around the body for your cells to use, as well as in carnosine. Carnosine is found in skeletal muscles. That reservoir can be tapped into if need be, but that doesn't mean that your histidine reservoir is always going to be full. If you do not consume any histidine over a 48-day period, they discovered that your levels, your storage levels, will actually drop to, quote, about 38% of the initial value. That makes consuming histidine incredibly important. But we also need appropriate levels of folate in order to support appropriate levels of histidine and prevent loss of histidine in the urine, because the kidneys have a difficult time reabsorbing this very specific amino acid. So with time, if you don't have any histamine-rich sources of food or supplementation in your diet, the stores that you have naturally will be depleted. You can't just consider histidine the only essential thing for your skin. As I said, it's required for hemoglobin production, and we obviously need oxygen to be carried around the body in order to oxygenate our cells and simultaneously remove carbon dioxide from the body as well. And while no one in the study seemed to experience any negative side effects, be aware that histidine breaks down naturally into histamine in your body. If you have high levels of histamine or have mast cell activation, this might not be the best way to go. If you struggle with a lot of allergic issues, I would discuss histidine supplementation with your allergist or your family doctor first to make sure that it's the right fit for you. And last but not least, I wanted to point out that just adding in histidine alone, while it may be helpful, also requires other nutrients in order for your entire body to be properly supported. So around histidine, we've already discussed folate, but it also impacts your copper and zinc levels. We require riboflavin as well. And to break down the histamine that is created, methylation must be optimized. I'm curious to hear what you think of this particular study and if you're willing to give this a shot. Keep in mind that before you start any type of supplementation, you should always discuss that with your doctor or practitioner first, making sure that there's no potential negative interaction that could occur and cause a problem. The links directly to this study and all other resources that I've gathered for you can be found in the show notes at skinterrupt.com/095. And you know what to do. Head on over to your podcast platform of choice, rate and review the podcast, and then make sure to hit the subscribe button. That way, the next episode is delivered onto your mobile device without you having to do a thing. And last but not least, I hope that you will share this episode with someone you know who's really struggling. Maybe someone is dealing with really dry skin, or they're using a lot of topical steroid creams and they'd love to start tapering off and be less reliant on them. This could really help them. You never know, so make a point to share. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.